Welcome to Thursday Theory, guys, on a Friday this week. Welcome to the show. We're live on YouTube. If you're listening to us live, don't forget to smash like. If you're not listening to us live, don't forget to smash like. It's the least you can do, and it helps us with the algorithms. Welcome to the show, Esh.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Yourself? It's your show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let's see. I've been uploading, videos on TikTok about old Tibet, and
Nice.
That's about it. Basically.
It's like the hot topic again this week, right?
Why? I don't understand. How did
because
it
of the
become a
Olympics,
hot
I guess. It's just like 2008 all over again. Me and you are old enough to remember 2008, right? When China had the Olympics in Beijing, and it was before Xinjiang was a thing. It was before Hong Kong protests were a thing. It was all about Tibet, wasn't it? I remember that.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
again.
The murderous monks in Tibet. I remember that.
Yeah, it's almost like the State Department was like, "Oh, the Olympics are coming up. Have we got any plans?" And someone was like, "Shit, no, we didn't organise anything. What did we do last time? Oh yeah, we did Tibet, didn't we? Let's do that again." So they've just decided to do that again, and basically doing exactly the same. How it amazes me how long they're gonna just keep bringing up the same old smears, even though they get debunked, and even though they're debunked by their own documents, right?
And their own videos even. We're gonna watch some of those people.
Yeah.
Literally, the OAS and the Britain has taken videos that literally debunk their stupidity because So, I mean, like they've visited Tibet. Basically, if you visited Tibet in anytime before 1951, it's like it's inevitable that you get debunked because, because Tibet was a terrible place, and it's not like these capitalists had a fortune teller. And they knew, 20 years from now, like 50 years from now, we're going to need to mirror China, and so we should record this. They don't know that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. These people would not know that 50 years from now, they probably are from the empire, and they probably don't understand the plan that 50 years from now, we're going to need to do codes and manufacture consent. So
I think maybe back then, definitely, right? Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whenever they were interfering as much as, physically interfering. Nowadays, I think they know that their propaganda is completely useless in terms of achieving anything in the actual place that they're writing propaganda about. But it still serves a purpose back home, doesn't it? Because they can use it as a dog whistle or gaslight, gaslight China basically, and be like, this is going on in China, you should look away. Don't look at the high-speed rail, look at what's going on in Tibet or whatever, right? That's all it's used for nowadays, because they know they're useless. Guaido can't even get inside the Venezuelan presidential building, let alone be the prime minister.
Or inside
right?
the parliament, for that matter.
That's what I'm talking about. He can't get inside the parliament, so they're gone. The time of being able to do what they want are gone. And another thing is the propagandists have spread themselves so thinly these days. This is why they can only seem to concentrate on one propaganda thing. So at the minute, like we said at the start, Tibet's back, right? It's the Tibet smear.
Yeah, I don't understand though how it can be whatever. I guess
They just turn it off. It's like a button. It's like they've got a big desk with all their propaganda on it. Or maybe it's like that scene in South Park when they talk about how Family Guy's written. You just get some like manatees to lift a ball out of a pole, and that's the propaganda this week. Juan Guaido climbing fence in Venezuela, and then like that falls down the chute, and the US try that for the week. PMC launches invasion from rubber dinghy in Venice. You know what I mean? It's stupid.
Yeah.
Olympics time. Oh, not Tibet again. They were all like, damn, not Tibet again. What? You know, the manatees are never wrong though. We've got to go with them. Anyway, I digress. Let's carry on. Introduce what you've got to show us, Esh.
Well, it all started on TikTok when somebody said, "Oh, I uploaded videos of former serfs being interviewed in Tibet," and some idiot on TikTok was like, "You only have one you don't include the other perspective." And then it got.
Hold on. What is the other perspective? The perspective
the slave
of the
owner's
slaver.
perspective.
Who wants the slave owner's perspective?
Apparently he does. But then I actually took that critique kind of seriously, and I decided to
Why not?
yeah, I mean yeah, and
He asked
then
for it.
I did I decided to actually look at some of the testimonies of these former exiles or current, I don't know, former, current, I don't know whether they're still the mechanics behind their exile, but basically I decided to take a look at them, and then what I realized.
Why not, right? Did it end with human spoiler? Did it end with human skin collection?
So far, no.
Okay, but that's what the other side wanted in Tibet, right?
Yeah,
collect human skin. Carry on.
So I realized it wasn't, and then, like I said, I realized that the other side, actually, if you listen carefully, they don't actually disagree on most of the facts. What they do disagree on is whether it was whether it was justified or not. Like, for example, they don't disagree with and so I thought, but unfortunately, Westerners don't
are you
listen
saying?
to it.
Are you saying that basically they are complaining about their grandpa's egg monopoly being
or
destroyed?
their slaves? Or basically.
That story, right? The old classic Cuban in Miami story about, you know, how persecuted they were, and then you find out they're a fascist, right? Good.
Yeah, exactly that story.
It's always the case.
Yeah, because unfortunately, because if you are really persecuted, you do not have access to, say, the John Podesta group in order to pitch that story to New York Times. So, like, you can't pay, like, the John Podesta group millions of dollars to pitch that story about how persecuted you are to the New York Times because you're poor and you don't have any money. And you probably can't even read. So that's the irony, is that a lot of times if you're really persecuted, you're not going to be hearing about it in the New York Times. It'll be just silence. And then 30 years later, we'll find mass graves like they did in Indonesia, Panama. Wherever else they find mass graves. 30
Exactly.
years. Chile.
Exactly. It's the classic reading the British press in Britain of what they were doing in India. You know, it's that, isn't it? History's written by the victor. You're not going to hear about the struggles of you don't hear why Indians rose up against their officers. They just get exactly. They just get painted as what, like, a violent force that attacked the honourable occupier. In reality.
Ironically, Indians also had an extremely weak spleen, literally court cases, and if the British kicked the Indian and the Indians' really weak spleen caused them to die, it meant that the British were not liable for murder because Indians generally have a weak spleen.
Right, okay.
No, this was a real case.
How does the fact that the Brits were didn't class Indians as human, how does that fit into this though? Surely any Brit could get away with murdering an Indian anyway, because they just
flora and fauna.
Exactly. Anyway, carry on before we talk about India all show.
Okay, no, I'm just saying it's the same thing in that you can have a segment of society that is not classified as fully human. And when that segment is not classified as fully human, you will hear stories from people, and it might sound like that they're persecuted, but you're not hearing the full story. Mm-hmm. So play the first 4 videos. Those are the best. Okay. Okay. This one's really hilarious. And then I'll pause. Okay. Hold on.
Can I play it with subtitles only, or do we need sound?
It's up to you. Well, does anyone here speak Tibetan and want sound?
I'll put a bit of sound on.
Okay, wait 1 second. Let me just give you some basic info. Dancing is a struggle session. So, despite what you hear in the West, for people who committed slavery, genocide, mass murder, mass rape, all these horrible things, literally the village got together and got the peasants who were victimized by this person, and then they were like, bad, he raped my daughter and then sold her for like a cup of butter. I've looked through transcripts of struggle sessions, and the crimes are just horrific. And then the punishment he gets is that they just like scream bad, and then they all hug it out at the end. So I'm in the West, they make it seem like it's like some sort of horrible thing, and the crimes they've committed is so over the top that I'm just like, this is so merciful that if all they do is got yelled at a little for, I don't know, slavery, genocide, mass murder, mass rape, or whatever else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've always found when you look into how socialist revolutionaries, or how people
merciful they are.
Exactly, how merciful they are.
So let's start this from the beginning, and you'll see some good admissions.
Okay. Let me just get this back.
This is some lady. Okay.
So hold on, this lady here is a
exile.
An exile, right? Okay.
Or former exile.
Okay, my aunt's family was rich. Right, okay.
Continue.
Cuban in Miami vibes already.
Yeah.
By the hands of her maids.
She admitted
the servants beat her.
They didn't say that.
So who's beating her? Says she went underground. Does it mean verbal beatings?
I don't know. Even if it was regular beatings, I'm okay with it.
I mean, she kind of contradicted herself. She said the servants didn't want to beat her, and then said they
Hold
did.
On. The mistress's clothes were worn by the maid's clothes were worn by the mistress, so they reversed roles.
Oh no. Oh no. You got put to work.
Hold on, you'll see something very funny.
Now, 제사 그걸 제우점네. 대대주. 띵년 용무 된속에 아니게 맞아봐 강가 녀다당 나둘은 디타에마 디동이마 또 디테마 둘론디
This all looks correct.
기니나니야 두 안디 ngală 요소 뭐게 ngală 칼라 sorbuden데 심제 사야된데 때기도 소된데 셴네 아니 녀다당도 알아 짜텐 이쪽바로 쇼 지금 드라마를 쇼 된데로 시
Okay.
Okay, so pause there. There are quite a few things I'd like to talk about. The first thing is that she admits that they were quote unquote maids. So
Right.
she admits that her aunt had servants.
Yeah.
Now, she was probably okay. I will grant that she is probably young and she probably does not know if her aunt paid the servants or if they were slaves. But I'll
She
give
had
anything.
maids, right? Okay.
Yeah, but I'll give anything to say, like, I bet you 99 out of 100 if I figure they were totally slaves.
Well, you say that, right? And in the transcript, the subtitles, they mentioned the maids mentioned that they got food and clothes. They didn't mention anything to do with being paid. So, I mean,
Yeah.
getting food and clothes sounds like a slave-serf relationship, right? That's
Exactly.
slave owners in the South, in the US and Europe, right? Whatever, provided clothes and food for their slaves, right?
Allegedly. Yeah, and what you notice is that, it first of all, when you are in power and their life is as unequal as it is in Tibet, you don't actually see your maids as human. Like, it is impossible to see them as human and continue with that system. You have to do something to make them seem less human. And so whenever you hear one of these gusanos tell their story, there's a lot of passive tense, like but that's because it's not because they're lying per se, but because they weren't used to seeing them as human, not used to thinking, oh, they have feelings too, they're tired. And then there's the second thing. When there's a big power differential, what could the slave landowner do to you, a serf? Like, what could he do that he could get away with?
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
They had literally anything. Rape, murder. They had private jails in many of these feudal manors. Now, from the point of view of a serf, if some lady says, do you like this dress? And she can send you to jail or kill you or amputate your arm or sell all your family off into another manor. What? Are you ever going to tell her the truth? Or are you going to just like always be hyper vigilant and tell her what she wants to hear?
Well, of course. Even butlers and maids in the West do anything that their master. I mean, even the term for this, master, right, comes straight from slave owner slave relationship terms, right? So yeah, of course, yes sir and yes ma'am would probably be the only two things that they would have ever said.
Yeah,
right?
and so what's funny is that this I read this in Reactionary Mind, where this lady was very confident that her slaves all loved her, and she thought, like, when the Northerners came, she was like, yeah, you can go talk to them, but I don't think they'd want to leave. And then she was really surprised when all her slaves left her. Because what she didn't realize is that because they were too afraid to tell her the truth. They were like, we love. And I saw the same exact phenomenon with the Tsar of Nikolai. He was sure that the Kerensky government fired all his babysitters, but in reality, the babysitters were like, I hate this guy. And they begged Kerensky to let them go. And so Kerensky said, we had to do something in order to spare both of their feelings, basically. so they didn't have any awkward feelings. And but then the Tsar Nikolai thought that Kerensky was being mean to his babysitters, but Kerensky basically lied and said, "Oh yeah, they cried a lot, but they had to go for some weird reason that we don't really know." And so what you realize is that the people you oppress are not going to be telling you the truth because they are too afraid to tell you the truth about how they feel, what they think. And on top of it, you are not going to be thinking too much about them because it's impossible to see them as fully human and continue to have them as slaves and make them sleep in the cowshed or whatever. You always have to kind of have this, oh, I'm such a kind person kind of relationship.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Okay, so now the next, and this is very important because a lot of people a lot of people think that these people lie, but a lot of them, I mean, some of them of course do lie on purpose, but this lady, I don't think she's lying, but she's but she, the second lady, the first lady, I really don't think she's lying. But if you look at it from her point of view, I can see why she would think that this is what happened. But this is hilarious.
Right, okay. I understand what you're saying. Basically, she's telling on herself, right? Once you understand who, what, and why she's representing, she's telling herself. I mean, a glaring example of this for me is when people go, "Oh, the
Have
US."
You read Archipelago?
I know when people say the US Constitution says "we the people," so it must mean like all America. Well, no, actually, they're just telling on themselves again, because once you realise the capitalist class, who they consider people and who they don't, aka maids aren't people and masters are people, right?
Yeah.
Then that sentence does make sense from their point of view, right?
Exactly. And also protection of property. Who was property back then?
Yeah, exactly. You have to understand the historical context and their point of view of the sayer, right? And then you understand that they're telling on themselves.
Like the second lady, she is great. Okay.
I think this is a good point, right?
Yeah.
It's not always.
They're not always all Yeonmis where they will be just lying about everything.
Exactly. It's my grandfather's egg factory again, right? You see it with, and before that it was like Cubans tweeting, weren't it, on Twitter, and they would expect sympathy because
Stalin. What is it? Stalin took all our family jewels and put them in a museum.
Exactly. It's good.
And I was like, so yeah. Go ahead.
Exactly. You do it all the time when you're arguing with someone, aren't you? So what was your grandfather doing? We've had it with Ukrainians. So what was your grandfather doing during the years 1930 to 1945? You just got to ask them that, honestly. They can't answer it. They won't answer it because they got to go, oh yeah, he was a Nazi.
Natalia refused to answer where she even I asked her which side did Dyadushka Pavel fight on, and then she made fun of the way I transliterated the word Dyadushka as in grandfather, but she did not answer ever.
Exactly. Right, anyway, let me play this video.
Okay, this is okay, fine. Yeah, because they probably didn't want to have interaction with. Okay, pause.
Exactly. I mean, how many times does the royal family in the West get to go down to just chill with the lads on the estate? That's what she's talking about, isn't she?
Well, and I bet you it's literally the same situation where the people did not want to interact, and the Chinese and the People's Liberation Army was like, okay, in order to make it less awkward for you, we're gonna just say, we forbid it.
Right, so carry on.
Go on. They are wealthy because this is literally true. Aww. It's funny now. 2 rooms. Because some grains. So they got, even though we owned a flock of sheep, we were given only 16 or 17. All our belongings was taken. Okay. The fathers were sent to prison and the house was locked. Just before autumn of 1959 began, the standing crops in our field was distributed to the poor, but wait.
Oh no.
We were left with only 2 plots of land. The case was similar with the other wealthy
So hold on.
families.
Do you know the background of this woman, or is she a kulak, or is she like somebody higher up, like, you know, fully?
Higher up. Let me explain. I'll tell you everything, but this just play this. It gets
Okay.
funny. Okay. Then around the 9th month, all the belongings were but not all. You'll see what was not distributed. All the household belongings. Sheep and yak were, except for the 17 sheep, which we owned many. Except we were not allowed any cows except for a donkey and a small yak. So she would get to keep 2 plots of land, not just one, so they could like have built another house and rented it out. And then when I look at 16 or 17 sheep together, I call it a flock. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I'd be pretty happy to have 16 or 17 sheep.
Yeah, she had 16 or 17 sheep, 2 plots of land, a donkey,
I'd be happy with that. I'd be happy
and
with
grain.
that.
They give her
I'd be happy
grain.
with that as well. Yeah. Free grain.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with that.
And allegedly 2 rooms, and I don't know whether it's an entire what she means by rooms anymore. So
2-room house, probably 2 rooms of her house. I think she meant, didn't she? Did she mean they just only allowed her to? They took her house over. No, they probably let people live in the mansion, right? And they allocated them 2 rooms.
He was a manor, and so what happened with the manor, everything's in like a square. So let me tell you the story. In old Tibet, there were these high up government officials called the Kashag, and what they did was they collected taxes from the lords, who then passed it on to the serfs. So if you were a lord, you would have to pay, let's say, 10% of your crop, and then the government would come and I don't know, shoot, whatever, protect your property, basically. Her father was one of those tax collectors who would ride around the country, inventorying all the taxes from everyone in the country. So her dad was super high up in the government, and they did a lot of. They were the first. It's funny. There's a longer video where she first says her family was the second most wealthiest family in that town, but then later she accidentally slips and she said, "Well, we had the most amount of land and livestock and whatever." And then you're like, the wealthiest family.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing about this is that both of these people were upset that the maids. Okay, the first lady was upset that they switched roles, but if they treated the maids well, they did not switch roles, because I know.
Well, no, hold on. If they'd have treated the maids well and still swapped roles, it wouldn't have been so bad for them, because they'd have got treated well. Right?
Exactly.
It sounds. What she's explained is how the maids were getting treated, because all they did was go, right, now you're going to be treated how you treated us. That's it, right? And they complained about it.
And as for the beatings, when you kind of realize how horrific that kind of relationship is, I don't even care. I mean,
well, no, it's the feudal relationship between lord and slave or commoner or peasant or whatever isn't a hard concept for somebody in the West to really understand. I mean, we have like TV shows like Game of Thrones that are literally about this, and you will see in the show peasants get treated like dirt, right? But there's no correlation in the mind between Western medieval history and how medieval history was in the global South, right? And why it shouldn't be continued. There's no correlation there, but yet we can fetishize it in the West. But it's used as a tool for anti-communism when it's applied to Tibet. Very strange, isn't it? Westerners should understand this perfectly and be like, fuck that. Do you know? That's how it should be. Do you want to live like a maid for somebody as a Westerner? How many people listening now? How many people do you know who are maids in this day and age in the West, right? Zero.
Well, like I said, and there were 3 levels of serfs. So one level was just a field worker, as in they rented out a plot of land from the lord, and they gave whatever percentage in crops, and they also had to give corvée labor, just free labor.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one. Then there was a second kind that was basically a bankrupt. Basically, if you have this relationship, you'll never be able to till your land, and you won't have any land to rent. And then you became a dorting, which was a second type of serf, where you didn't really have any land, and you were hired by
A
landowner for whatever kind like thing they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So you were kind of like a gig worker, I guess,
Right.
in feudal Tibet. But then there was another level that's even worse than that, called namsing. And a namsing was basically 24/7 slaves. They had to do whatever the lord asked, and they were 24/7 slaves. And one of the namsings was telling us, like, she was living in a cowshed. Even though they had many, like, they had big mansions, but they were making their servants live in the cowshed, and they were also
understandable, right?
Understandable. Well, yeah.
As a concept, it's understandable. It's not an alien concept when you say this. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's not.
Of course, a feudal lord is going to treat their maid like crap, right?
Well, yeah. If they, they have to treat them as close to an animal as possible. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's hard to upkeep that system if you don't keep telling yourself they deserve it. Whatever, it's karma. Under Buddhism, it was probably karma. They did something horrible in their past life. Karma. Yeah. Whatever. You have to justify it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're too close to them, your humans bond, and you can't humanize them. So you have to just you just have to be cruel to them.
Yeah. I mean, it's still done in the West today, right? When rich people will hire like migrant workers, and they will see them as less, you know.
Yeah, and they'll try exactly.
They're not making them live in a cowshed, like, but this relationship is the same. Exactly, close enough.
They'll get paid a little enough, and that they'll have to live in such a expensive place that they'll have to have like 30 people living in a house or something to
I mean, it happens it's quite a bad problem in Hong Kong. The rich in Hong Kong will have like poor cleaners from Malaysia and Philippines, or and they don't get paid much, and they go live in these like really bad conditions and come to work to clean some rich HSBC workers like apartment that he's hardly ever there at. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same relationship that's going on today.
It's worse in, say, Saudi Arabia and Qatar.
Exactly, because I'm there as well.
Oh, well, yeah, they're 80% of the population are from somewhere in Asia.
Well, the World Cup next year's been built by slaves, hasn't it? So, and that's in Qatar. So there you go. It's still happening.
So, yeah, it's still happening. But it looks a little different in that they have these apartments are now it's not exactly a cowshed, but it's like a barrack that's really small and unhygienic.
So an upgraded cowshed, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't call it cowshed, and it won't look like a cowshed, but it will be fun. I mean, it will be pretty horrific nonetheless, and none of us would want to live there.
Exactly.
Okay, the next one is really funny because. Okay, hold on, pause. If an Indian were to say, if I were to go ask an Indian, what is the first sign of British occupation? Most of them would say something like, half of our family was kidnapped, they killed somebody, we all had mass starvation, something like that. This guy was
the looting began.
Or something like that, like they stole everything. But so they ask him, what does a Chinese occupation look like? And listen to him.
Okay, let's play.
When I arrived to Lhasa, the first and foremost visible sign of occupation is a radio program. A radio program is called Tongchil Hase Kuyu Janda Longtin Lekung. Tongchil Hase means the city of Lhasa. And Kuyu Janda.
Has he said radio station? Yeah, he said it. He's just about to describe the name of it. So hold on, let me get
okay, go ahead.
Means,
tell me when this radio station part's over. It's really fun.
Okay.
With a tar, with a wire, and then on that wire, the what you call the microphones have been placed on the housetops.
Yes. Yes.
And 3 hours a day, the noise pollution used to be there. And always talking all the time how the Tibet have been peacefully liberated through 17-point agreement, and who were the people who signed the 17-point agreement. And hearing to that, we remember everybody's name.
There you go. He's just said that what happened was the radio broadcast got played that said Tibet has been liberated peacefully due to this 17-point agreement, and then they listed the names of it, and then I've paused it. So what were you going to say?
Yeah, that does not sound like an occupation. That sounds like a radio station.
Yeah, exactly. If you asked someone from Belarus, how did you first realise that you were under Nazi occupation? And they would say, they kicked the door down. They rounded up the entire village.
They would say they exterminated everyone in the village. And
exactly. I'm the only one who survived by running off into the woods. Exactly. That would be the sign of a true occupational, murderous force. Compare that to not radio station. They set up loudspeakers from every roof and told everybody that they'd been liberated and that the ruling classes had agreed to the liberation peacefully. Oh, how authoritarian.
Oh, and then what you'll realize is that the thing that bothers him is the fact that what bothers him is actually equality between the classes.
Okay, let's let it finish then. Hold on.
And they always used to say, that means having all authority, Mr. Ngapu Ngaonjime.
Yes.
Because people used to say the agreement was concluded under duress, and Ngapu was not authorized to enter into such agreement, and there's no authority. So therefore, they always repeat. The Ngapu Ngaonjime has all authority, and with all his authority, and he has signed this. And each day they repeat what are the 17 points and how important is coming back the Tibet to the main house of the big family, and so on and so forth. So this is visible one thing, and the second visible is all the places near the monasteries and government establishments, they have put the military camp. And right in front of Depot Monastery, we call it Jangta Linka. That means right from the Depot Monastery we can see there are thousands of tents have been put, and later on it become barracks.
Yes.
So this military presence was very visible. Apart from this too, we never care what is going on at the political level, and we don't have any news and what channels are doing at the level of government or what. So we are quite usually live in a monastery.
Right, okay,
What-
it's finished.
Yeah, what did he tell you? He said the noise pollution.
Right, okay, so the reality of the PLA liberation / occupation, if you're a comprador of Tibet, went like this. So you would be sitting in your house one day, and then all of a sudden at like 2 p.m. that afternoon, you would hear a radio broadcast from the houses around your manor house, right? And the radio broadcast would be like, listen guys, Tibet's now been liberated peacefully. There's no fighting going on. It's been liberated peacefully. And this is the agreement that the manor owners have signed with us, the socialists who represent the people of Tibet, right? And this is the 17 points we've agreed on. And these are the people who've signed it. Just for transparency, there you go. Enjoy the rest of your day, right? And the second thing he saw was that when he went down to a government building, the military had taken it over, and they built it into barracks, which is kind of expected when dealing with lords, right? You've got to have some military there in case any of them decide to kick back. But an interesting point he made when saying that, which tells all, is he didn't mention the military actually doing anything. He just said they made a barrack.
Yeah, so they basically made a place for them to sleep because the old military was probably sleeping in a cowshed.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably, yeah, exactly. There you go. But also, like I say, I like how he mentioned no violence. He didn't mention a single act of violence in that.
No, and but to them it is inherently violent when
Well, he actually said, Esh, that he didn't care politically. So I don't know what he's going on about. Why has he all of a sudden started caring? He said in the video, we didn't care, because I guess he's a monk sat in a monastery who's just been left alone. He's been left alone so much, Esha, he can just not care.
Yes, he could have not cared and continued in the monastery, but in 1959 they did the rebellion where all these monks got trained by the CIA to fight the government.
Yeah, sure.
And then they had to they had to go to jail if they didn't leave, so he fled.
So he got turned afterwards. But interesting to note, at the time he says he didn't care. If I was the victim of such an authoritarian invasion, such as being a Belarusian in Belarus in the 1930s, late 1930s, I would more than care about politics at that point, wouldn't you?
Exactly. And so, I mean, so that day, he didn't care that day because that was not the day that they slowly lost their privilege. So the first thing that the People's Liberation Army did was they gave zero interest loans to all these peasants who just wanted to not be in debt, and paid them off. And so the peasants would then pay off the lord, and then they would not have to give corvée labor. So that bothered them because the point of the loans was the high interest loans is to make sure that they never pay it off so that they'll always be your slave.
Right, okay.
So then all these like people suddenly were like, oh yeah, we're not going to be your slaves. Here you go. Here's your money. Bye-bye. That itself offends them. And then the next step is they start. Oh, and then the next step is that the PLA starts recruiting people to work on the roads. And they're paying actual money. Suddenly, people who are forced to be slaves or the gig worker type, they're like, yo, I'm getting like $3 from the PLA yeah, you better pay me, or else I'm gonna go work
Which the
for.
maids weren't. They never mentioned any money. They just got clothes and food, right?
Yeah, and the PLA is like suddenly giving him $1 or $2, whatever they gave him. Like, because the PLA recruited local workers, so they recruited the local people to build bridges and roads and everything like that. So suddenly, like, when they used to have all these, like, 100 maids at their disposal, suddenly they're gonna have to pay a lot more, and that feels like oppression because they're not used to having people say no to them. So those were the two things. And then their paranoia begins because the more they realize that, oh my god, we've treated them so badly, and that they make up 95% of the population, we make up 5% of the population. Yeah, we can't really fight them if we have to, so we're screwed. And that's when the counter-revolution reaction begins. So on that day, yeah, he didn't probably care. But within the next 2 years, there was a lot of changes. There were no longer kids. Kids started to go to school because they didn't have to donate the kids as corvée labor. People started
People
to
weren't
build.
working 15 hours a day, etc.
Yeah, people started to
getting
build.
paid actual money.
Exactly, and and then they built the first road, and then they got industrialized equipment, just little things like that. And then eventually, what happens? So, okay, I honestly think So, this is really funny. This guy is also a reactionary. But, okay, so can you, I want everyone to guess who the men in the pictures are, and if there's any connection to the victims of the struggle session.
군이나 딘데셔야도 니저 냠도 힘니 랑샤르바 제가 빠르바 네가 시르지라 빠텔라 미지기 락발라 대자
Yes, some random man holding a whip. And another man, a random man with a rope in his hand, and a pair of handcuffs that have nothing to do with the man.
테는 밖에 랑에티 팽디 닝벨 깨자리에 셰고 또 수조걸 깨자리 니저 림베체선데 텐탐디 작도 두 겸제 미지 락반 녹스파 데브바 녹스 락반 타마자.
Okay, yeah, that had nothing to do with one of the serfs. Totally unrelated.
딩안도 디어바 텐조 닝베요바 딘데 손데 고고징 나랑메다 포라 탕레 손데 포라샤.
The beggars and the worst of people. So, come on. He called poor beggars the worst of people. Like, it shows you like what they thought of the serfs.
And he also says that the regular people sat on the floor and they gave the chairs to the sick and needy, right?
And the beggars, yeah.
Yeah, and the normal citizens sat on the floor. Isn't that not just like when you get on a public transport in the West and you give your seat up to somebody who needs it more than you, right?
Yeah, you always give up your seat for the pregnant, the old lady.
That's what you just described. It's so disgusting to him, right? Mask off moment to him, right? It's so disgusting. How the worst drag. It's like a Daily Mail story when the Daily Mail are like bigging up homeless spikes on benches. Yes, now the homeless can't sleep there. The worst of society. Do you know what I mean? It's that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Wow,
right?
Exactly like the Daily Mail story. Oh my god, I've read about 2 of those Daily Mail. Like, oh my, that's exactly it.
Right, let's carry on.
So he was guilty of a few. Okay. That sounds like a poetic language. Had to shout. Or they wanted to shout.
Okay, so they just shouted something at him.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
No. It goes on. It gets funnier. He was not arrested. Rebels who took up arms. Okay, this is really funny part. That assets and properties were useless in life, so he could not buy basically was saying that people can no longer bribe me with my wealth.
Yeah,
I can no longer bribe
exactly.
people like that. That's what
Exactly.
offended him. And if you notice, nothing happened to his uncle or whoever he was, who was like a, I don't know,
He
jailer.
basically realised that his lands were going to get taken and he won't be able to bargain with them, so he best off just flee, right?
Well, yeah.
He
But
didn't want him to shout annihilate at him. He mentioned no real violence, really,
Yeah.
apart from...
The uncle who had prisoners like chained up or whatever, he just got yelled at a little, and then people yelled annihilate at him. I don't think and then they even said they did not arrest him. They didn't even take him to prison. So all that happened was that people yelled annihilate at him, and he probably
And he got
chopped
let
off
out.
like people's hands and legs and raped
raped women,
made,
whatever he did. Keep them chained up, fed them dog mess, all kinds of crap, right?
Exactly, and all he
Oh, no.
had is somebody yelling annihilate at them.
Oh no.
And
Poor
you're
him.
like, okay. Yeah, and but then like the way they describe it, so it makes me doubly mad that the struggle, like once you discover their crimes, you get really mad that the struggle session is not like their imagination, and then you get even more mad.
Well, how disattached from real life are these people that the worst possible thing that could happen to them in the world is of the village that you've abused, shout a bit of abuse at you, like.
It's not even abuse. It's like annihilate is not.
Oh, you just want to shout at me and not like do what
Tell
you
me.
did. Exactly. Oh, cool. Do you know what I mean? Sounds.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, I had to flee to the US and become a traitor or whatever. But like you say, again, he's another one who told on himself because he was like, you know,
Well, he
I
says
realised
the
my
beggars
property.
and the worst.
Well, that part is telling on himself because he sounds like a Republican senator. That's literally what he sounds like. But the part when he's like, I had to flee because I realised my property and land wasn't going to be able to be useful.
Asset.
Exactly.
Yeah, he
So
couldn't bribe-
basically, you've got land, right? And land reform's happening. All right, cool. You go.
And he was not able to bribe the PLA with anything. They were uncorruptible.
Exactly.
Yeah, this guy is really funny because okay, this looks like the Chinese arrested a lot of people, but you'll see. The one thing he doesn't tell you is the statistics. So I'll tell you the statistics, and you'll get a completely different picture.
This guy on screen now, right? Yeah. Okay.
Tene ta togru son tene ngone pakita marto jap marte bita onzi mewa chawarwa bebe shung mewa chani jemi sewarwa ta zimbarwa zinne tene ta jemi laga cheo togru ta tsala juye da tin kaso ta ke ngami mi 시행 제도 직치 아니 양 가수래 내내 채워지 월왕감이 건발이 가리는 되게 시가도 되게 내내 채워서 니지 다티 가라 아니 최기로 좀 통보용에 저한테 최 이쪽이 와리 때문에 관심 걸어 더 봐자
언제 주갈다 라마치는 주디 세럴렌 라마드니 주라
아 망보 주기 책이 말에 탐증시에 됐다는 빼면서 그 동이 와리 다 개두기 기겐도 주 밤에 부구 동주, 부기 파마 동주, 텐제스 때 두자 좋아.
통수였는데.
아 통성이랑 망보 통성. 뒤 책이 말 가르래서는 재미 가르를 넣기 war했으나 호랑주 동성쓰기 war해. 재미 호랑주 지연 동그 말해. 먼저 미 동주야. 다 가르서 먼저 미츠절라 때된 지랑지 지기도 이 지금 마동나 때 독자를 지랑도 로중 캠민도 지랑 배 강스 거래다. 야튼 바 있네 제레면도 찍레면도 니 배미강 나다 끼워 주는 티니 소스.
Source, please.
That's exactly what happened. Yes, I'm sure.
탈락자 때문에 강소리 먼저 미 상보지 상담대 맞아 거기도 와 상보지 거기도 제 상보면은 지당 시행 과라와 시행면은 용답이
Okay. Oh my God.
미 그런 상보지면은 그 시행 고 우리가 단도 강소리 독동년당 깔랭 수행해야지 자기도 와 시행이 그런 확성력 보지 거기도 이 TV가 찍지 않고
You want me to pause it?
Okay.
Will you signal me to pause it there, right?
No, I was just getting mad at what he was saying again.
Oh, do you want me to finish it? There's only 30 seconds
Yeah.
left. Okay.
Yeah, please finish it.
아니 그 라제 토베는지 레어도 토.
Oh.
타랑전 토야 세대 다때 시에면도 재미 안 나타난다. 그게 지야 고랑한테 이제 짝슨 보트 이제
They're not negotiating anything with you. They're done.
It's not up for debate. It's like the Tsar. It's like interviewing the Tsar and being like, so have you? How are the negotiations with Lenin going? And he's like, great, yeah. We're looking to get what we want, which is to reverse the Bolshevik. Lenin's agreed to that, right? We're just taking the family away on holiday. The Bolsheviks have said.
Which is what he should have done. Anyways, but what you okay? So first he makes you think like they arrested a lot of random people. So what do you think the literacy rate was for Tibet back then?
Like 1% or whatever the feudal class level percentage was.
Not the entire feudal class percent, but the okay. So it was very low. And he says all the estate owners. Well, let's play the next video so you learn how many people owned estates and
Okay, let's get this playing.
This one is my TikTok, so you can play this.
The wealth of Tibet is concentrated in 20 of these official families.
20 families.
Twice a Dalai Lama has been born into this circle. The father is a cabinet minister, and his son's wife, shown carrying her baby daughter, was an Indian princess before her marriage.
Yeah, so basically they had majority of the wealth was concentrated in 20 families in Tibet. So not a lot of people. And about most
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like medieval Europe.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And what you realize is, well, yes, they arrested all the intellectuals, as in people who, because most were illiterate, and school was basically a privilege. So in order to be an intellectual, you had to be super wealthy, and you probably had to have slaves. Mm-hmm. And they didn't even arrest all the intellectuals because some intellectuals had a good heart. And like I was just reading about the Red Prince of Tibet. He was he was not really a prince, but they called him a prince because he was very high up in the Kashag. But they called basically in 1950 he was like, yeah, we don't want to do serfdom, and he went and talked to Mao, and then he had his own little army, and he integrated his army, and he became one of the first PLA members. And there were a lot of rich people and intellectuals who were like that too, where they're like, okay, this is a bad system, we shouldn't do this. Yeah, this is cruel. And they willfully just negotiated with Mao and gave up. And so I was about to do a video about the Red Prince of Tibet, which I'll try to do this week. But so I just so it's not even all wealthy people, but these are just like the most vocal or the ones who are most reactionary. And and so now if you're an American and you hear about free Tibet or whatnot, another thing that really irritates me about the Dalai Lama is the reason why Westerners love him is that he allows them to be liberal and stupid, and he just reinforces, just meditate and life is good kind of nonsense. He just loves.
I mean, that last monk was saying that, wasn't he? I just want everybody to live in unity and harmony. But while you have people, like I say, he said people. He doesn't mean me, you, and everybody else. He means the rich and elite. You have to understand the context of who he means when he says people.
Exactly, and on top of that, he claimed that if you're not educated, you're a bad person. Well, in old Tibet, 98% or something ridiculous like that were illiterate.
It's the way to It's the way to say something really evil without sounding really evil, isn't it? Oh, people who aren't educated are bad, right? Everybody nowadays would possibly take that with less of a pinch of salt if they didn't realise that 99% of people weren't educated, right? So in effect, what he's saying is 99% of people are bad.
And they deserve whatever they got. And they were not bad people. They
But
were
not
just
only that, though,
born...
Ash. The 99% of people that he's referring to are of an entire different class group to him, right? So not only is it like a anti-human question, but it's classist as well, isn't it? They're always very telling once you realise how to spot what they're talking about.
Yeah, remember the context exactly. Okay, so the next videos you're gonna see, you won't see mostly in the West. This is go ahead.
Was this part 2 of the same video?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is my
Two
TikTok, so you
brothers
can
of the
actually
Dalai Lama are students. The one shown here,
see how they're in school.
Bears a striking resemblance to the young pontiff. Tibet is still unaffected by the machine age.
And these are the
Hauling,
serfs.
planting and harvesting are all done by primitive methods. The laborers, content with their lot,
That's crazy. How much
chant
do you
as
think
they
that
work.
hay weighs?
Too much for any Western worker to carry. I like how he says in the video there, just so confidently, Tibet. What did he say? Tibet is not part of the machine age.
Yeah, exactly. So and then he says, "Oh, those them serfs are really happy with slavery or whatever." And why does he think that? Yeah, and this
because the reason why he thinks that is because he's got that view from a monk who said to them, "They're really happy." Right? Because
yes, you're right. I didn't think about it. Yes,
they've still got to, although they treat them anti-humanistic, they've still got to clear their own conscience, right?
You're right.
And to do that would be to assume that these people you don't deem as human are still happy with their lot in life. We give them clothes and food after all, right?
Okay. Yes, that's exactly. Okay, so this is a film filmed by Ernst Schaefer, who belonged to the SS. And mute this, but you'll see something very interesting.
Right, okay.
I tell you to mute this because you probably get copyright trouble.
Right, okay.
So this
as
is
long as we keep pausing it and every minute or so, it'll be all right.
No, it's small enough that you won't get into copyright trouble because it's like the film is an hour and a half long.
Right, okay, go on.
So what you see is that the Germans are coming.
Right. Is this the Nazi Germans?
Yeah. The Nazi Germans, 1939. But look at this. Okay, and then you'll see oh my god. Okay, this is how they used to punish people in old Tibet. See, amputated foot. I don't know what that is.
Kept in some sort of shackle board.
Okay. And then these are the Nazi Germans. But you'll see something very interesting.
Does he start measuring their skulls? I've seen that picture.
Yeah, no. I did not include that part in the video. But I do have that video that I can put up on TikTok later. So they exchange gifts with this guy. That's the Nazi German. Mm-hmm. And then they take off their hats. Okay.
Okay. I think they're.
Yeah. See this? Pause.
Oh, Vito's here. Right. Let me pause it.
Now pause.
Hold on, Ash. I'll pause. Vito, what were you gonna say?
So right off the bat, what I could translate is that the Nazis, Germany, and the pre-liberate the Tibet have like lots in common, and yeah.
What a statement!
Yeah, that's actually what it was, translated into. So.
But are they bragging about that, or I guess they are, right?
Nazis were.
Yeah.
This is the Ernst Schaefer film.
Like saying they have a lot in common with the Tibets that
Well, hold on. Now you've said that, it makes sense that the US would be so interested in Tibetan independence because I'm pretty sure the Nazis said the same about America, right? They had something in common. They were inspired by Jim Crow laws, weren't they? Right? Ash, what were you going to say? Because you got me to pause it.
Oh no, I just wanted people to look at this
this flag.
video. The flags.
Yeah.
The
flag.
but Vito explained why I wanted them to look at the flags, anyways. Yeah, you can continue with the video. And if Vito can like subtitle, like read out the sub.
Oh, hang on. Can you pause that? So interesting. I think it was like one of the Tibetan lords just received a letter from Hitler.
Oh my god!
Nice.
Oh
Yeah.
my god!
Okay.
Fan
just
mail.
Just continue on.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah, here's the letter. Look.
Healthy, happy, and prosperous. You know.
So Hitler was wishing the Tibetan lords to be happy, healthy, and prosperous.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And this was on National Geographic.
This is on National Geographic, folks. Yeah.
I love
Okay.
it when they tell on themselves.
This looks like a Tibetan seal.
Right, so these guys are the lords, right?
Yeah.
The serfs you've seen in that video.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, stop right here. Okay, just a few frames back. So it was like one of the the Nazis took one of the Tibetan model of treating serfs as their models in their political and judicial system.
Jesus Christ!
Okay, so basically the Nazis, for their slave labor program, their world famous one, was inspired by the Tibetan system. Right?
Partly inspired by their.
Partly
there's
inspired.
also, like Jim Crow's.
Yeah.
Model.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a mixing pot of ideas, right? Jesus Christ.
Oh wow. Okay.
What?
So it says that they are more advanced and sophisticated in ruling over their subjects, and they are the true conqueror and the
true slave master relationship, basically, is what they're saying. Is perfect. The order that they're maintaining, right?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, this sounds like the cities that get liberated in Game of Thrones that Westerners are like, liberate the city. But when it comes to a real life example, they're like, no, let's go back to that. It's so weird. Right, so Karen playing? Go on, Vito, what were you saying? I'll pause it.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Game of Thrones comparison. If it's like the Dalai Lama, like you could see the comparison of that and Khaleesi, where
exactly. If Tom had managed to get up, he'd know all the names. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. Oh, you can continue.
Okay, here we go.
So they're really rough on the edges, but they're really,
The Nazis are saying that the Tibetans are really rough on the edges?
But they are, effective. Yeah.
So basically, that's a way of saying
wait. The Nazis think
right?
the Tibetans are a little rough.
Barbarians, basically.
Well, okay, wait. So
Warlord.
The Nazis are like, okay, you guys are a little over the top with the way you treat your slaves.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting. Where it's like where the Nazi officers is that the Tibetan I think they're called knights, is the model for the I don't know what division of the Nazi.
At the SS.
SS?
Of the SS, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hold on, before we carry on, Jamie says in the chat there, thank God this was never implemented at large scale in Eastern Europe. If you're talking about slave labour, it was implemented in large scale in Eastern Europe by the Nazis. We've done Escher has articles on this. So
especially by IG Farben. Because
Exactly.
They made so much money on that.
Exactly, and they are the top of the German government, right? And these are the people who have been studying this footage the most at that time. That's why they're there.
Christ.
Crazy, right? Shall I carry on?
Yeah.
Good thing you're here.
So that officer apparently learned a lot in Tibet about their,
Methods of control.
Yeah, Ernst Schaefer.
So there you go,
so
folks.
Wow, I did not. Wow. Okay. So Ernst Schaefer, like there's a picture of, if you Google him, you'll see a picture of him between Hitler and Himmler. He's the guy between. When you Google, there's like a picture that you'll come up, and he's the guy between Hitler and Himmler.
Exactly. This is like that SpongeBob meme where Patrick is sat in the chair and SpongeBob is pointing at things.
Yeah.
What do you mean free Tibet? They were inspired by the Nazis, and this is
They
the
inspired Nazis.
Yeah,
the
inspired
Nazis,
the Nazis. Sorry, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Nazis learned their methods of. What did they learn their methods for? The
Slavery.
SS? I forgot.
The methods of
Slavery,
enslaving
yeah.
people. Yeah, exactly.
Controlling.
I didn't realize slavery had a
their subjects.
method.
Well, of course it does. How else
Okay.
does this? There was probably books on this at the time. How to keep your slaves in check,
Oh!
right? Surely.
Yeah, I bet. Like, I'm sure there's like some Tibetan. Oh my god, I should check this. Like, I really need to find a Tibetan speaker friend.
I mean, it's not just Tibet, is it? The same across Europe, where if you look into medieval history, there's examples there of how a lord would treat his serfs. It's only the same. When you're reading things like Engels' work conditions of the working class in Britain in, 1844, is it? 44?
45.
1844. 1844, I've just got it out in front of me here. 1844, when you're reading that book, and it's like a key piece of socialist literature, isn't it? And you're reading about how workers in Britain were treated in 1844, right? And there's kids working in factories, people working as pretty much slaves for a capitalist, living in a capitalist house. The capitalists would build schools, housing around their factories for people, and they would be treated like a slave, right? When Engels is writing out about England and the West in 1844, when you are looking at Tibet in 1959, it's just that situation. But why is there any difference? Because one was England in 1844 and we're now not like that, and Tibet was like that in 1960 and now Tibet's not like that. Are you suggesting that England should also go back to the conditions it was in 1844? I mean, we know that that's what capitalists want if they could get away with it, right?
Eventually they will always get there. They'll squeeze you to get there eventually.
Well, we've just seen 14-year-olds being deemed fit for work in the US, right? Which is something the Western world's not been doing for 100 years or whatever.
At least openly.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that, isn't it? It's that imperialist relationship that people in the core will always get treated a little bit better. But that's why they want this. I mean, it's an example, isn't it, how people are treated out on the fringes of the empire, right? As you get further out, and it's literally just that they want an independent Tibet so it can go back to how it was. So
that they can then
the small few can collaborate with the small few over here, right, to maintain economic hegemony. It's literally
and then they can get the lithium or whatever minerals in Tibet. What's the mineral in Tibet that they want?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Monica says, have we seen that Nazi leader that looks like a skinny 14-year-old? What, Adolf Hitler? Do you mean Adolf Hitler? Which Nazi leader? He thinks he's a free speaker and the master. Is this some sort of Twitter beef, Monica? If it is, send it us and we'll have a look later. Anyway, should we carry on?
Yeah. Okay, so now this is the story that you'll never hear in the West.
Is this the next video, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go.
He's like an old man. He's in his 80s or 70s.
Oh,
And this
yeah,
is my
it's-
TikTok, so you can play the sound, but no one understands Tibetan, so you don't. Never mind.
I like his hat. Okay, so he was a serf, right?
Yeah, and she has a really she's 96 now.
No,
or
him,
whenever
the
this
guy.
video. The guy was 80 something, and he was a serf, and the rest of the video is adorable because he loved this little girl. He was 16 back then, and I don't know how old she was, like probably 14, 13, 12, I don't know. But she was like a serf girl who didn't have any parents, and they couldn't get together because they needed the Lord's permission to marry. So they got together after liberation. Yeah, and they're still together 70 or 80 years later.
Yeah, so should we play this next one, right?
Yeah. This one, she's 96, but the story she'll tell, look at her facial expressions and how she's like suppressing a tear.
Okay.
Yeah, so she never saw her parents again after age 12 when the serfs just sent her, like when the serf owners, wherever, they just sold her off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and see, she's 96, so it had happened, let's see, she was 12, so she's 96
85 years ago.
And she's still crying. She still cries about it because it's such a traumatic memory.
Well, why wouldn't you? It's your parents, right?
Parents. Yeah, and she's like, I never saw them ever again after that.
Again, to compare that to how the West makes films like Django that are about exactly what she's just talked about, yet for some sick reason. I mean, we know the reason why, right? The reason why they do all this Tibet stuff is because China's socialist. That's literally that's all it is.
And they want to probably get some resource like lithium. I'm sure there's some minerals.
It's a spanner in the works, isn't it? It's just another.
It's not even a resource thing with Tibet. It's actually about purely the geostrategic location of it. It's like the fact that it's kind of convergence
between India and China
of the four Asian rivers. I think it's the yeah. So basically, controlling China is controlling the watercourse for. Sorry, controlling Tibet is controlling the watercourse for all of China, India, Vietnam, kind of everywhere. So that's why it's always been a bit of like a battle of importance between the major powers in the region.
Right, I'm just gonna step away from the mic just to get a glass of water. So you guys just carry on. I'll be back in 2.
Okay.
Go on.
Speaking of geostrategic struggle, there's like a CGTN article that says that the earlier invasion was done by the British, the East Indian Army, the East Indian Company, sorry, that they have sort of like tried to invade and occupy Tibet during the waning years of Qing Dynasty. In what is known as the British expedition to the region.
Is that the Youngblood expedition?
The British expedition.
I know, the Youngblood, right? Colonel Youngblood?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
They sought to advance their influence from the Indian subcontinent, define China's border to their own preferences, and also promote separatists as part of their broader campaign to exploit the country. Likewise, there is a long documented history of CIA meddling in the region in the bid to stir up unrest and division. And then it says that like that it was there was like an article published in the Guardian by Zero News what we don't hear about Tibet, outlining how ideological biases against China and the false perception of a romanticized Tibet in the Western imagination clouds.
Oh wait, wait, which article? Where is this article?
You can
it sounds a lot like my article, exactly like my article.
Is this the CGTN one?
Yeah, the CGTN had a article, put an article that article.
Can you send me that article, because that sounds exactly like the first line of my article, and I'm gonna be kind of mad if somebody used my article without giving me credit.
CGTN as well.
That was like a decade ago. That was like 2009.
Okay, it's not my article. Okay, we just said the same thing.
So
can you still send me the article? I'm a little I just want to be sure. Can you share my article, please, everyone?
Yeah, I'll get to that in just a sec. And then news says that 98% of the Tibet's population was enslaved and served them. The rulers of Tibet were not peaceful, pacifist leaders, but high-ranking lamas and secular landowners. We're gonna call someone. We're gonna call someone from.
I think people in the West as well, like when they picture Tibet, they just picture like awesome, cool Buddhist kings. Like they're like, oh, it's it's so. Yeah, we love spiritual Buddhist guys. It's so wholesome and lovely. Like they don't know fuck all about like the actual atrocities lamas committed.
And who
just look at any transcript of any struggle session.
Yeah, no.
Carry on, Vito.
Who imposed crippling taxes, forced boys into monastic slavery, and pilfered most of the country's wealth, torturing disobedient serfs by gouging out their eyes or severing their hamstrings.
And I have that, and limbs.
The Tripung Monastery, for one, is described in an academic paper by Michael Parenti. I always use Parenti rather than some,
Chomsky. Or anyone below Chomsky, right?
And then you use me, of course, use my articles.
Yeah,
exactly. If you're not going to go Parenti, go Escher.
Well, I would say I'm sorry, but I just feel like I do a very thorough job of research, and I feel like my articles should be shared.
Yeah, I agree with that fully, and I back that statement, Escher. I've read your articles. Carry on, Vito.
One of the biggest landowners in the world, with its 185 manors, 25,000 serfs, 300 great pastures, and 16,000 herdsmen.
This is with 20 families ruling over it, right? Remember from the other footage.
Yeah. So this is you're right. This is like the kind of like the 1% of the aristocratic, the patent noblesmen.
The 1% of the 1%.
Yeah, the 1% of the 1%. Yeah. They actually there was like an ethnic Tibetan professor, Tashi Shearing, that states that the Tibetans see themselves better off after its liberation in 1951 than before. He testifies of having experienced sexual abuse and beating. Having left Tibet and returned in 1964, it strongly believes Mao Zedong liberated the region. The peaceful liberation of that region not only ended the unequal system of serfdom, but also transformed it economically through ending the slavery, imposed taxes, creating new infrastructure, including the region's first hospitals and schools, and providing clean water, which in the process has more than doubled local people's life expectancy.
And
now,
listen, hold on, Vito. I've got to just hold your thought there. When you're reeling off lists like that about how the socialists came along and started building hospitals, it's really annoying to have Westerners then try and discredit everything that's happened in Tibet in the last 70 years. As if it's their pet project that they can just be into, as if it's like supporting Manchester United, right? Oh, I support Free Tibet.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're talking. So what you actually mean, right, when you say that, is you support Tibet as a region, because that's what it is. That's what
you
Tibet's
support
position.
Tibet as a slave state. When you say Free Tibet,
yeah. Not only that, you support Tibet with no hospitals, right? Let's lay it out more simplistic. You support no hospitals in Tibet. That's what you're talking about, because Tibet already, as a part of the People's Republic of China, has autonomy, right? It's called the Tibetan Autonomous Region, right? It has its own government. It's run by people who live there. Democratic centralism is the form of government, right? You know, if you just read Xi Jinping on governance of China, once you understand the way that Leninism works, democratic centralism, there's no way that Tibetans don't have full political power, right? There's no way, it's impossible for them to not have it. So when somebody in the West does say things like, Free Tibet, because they've heard it on the NBA or wherever, right? What you're talking about a country that is nothing to do with you, thousands of miles away, where people that lived getting their feet cut off by their masters and sleeping in cow sheds and being sent off at 12 years old to go and live up a mountain herding cattle for the surf lord or whatever, right? You're telling those people you're not having hospitals. That's what you're saying. It's disgusting, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, Vito, do carry on.
Actually, I think there was like the points that I want to get through with this article, but I also wanted to, use another article from the Chinese consulate in Manchester about Britain's role of the two invasions into Tibet.
Go ahead.
So, Britain launched two invasions into Tibet in 1888 and during 1903 and 1904 in an attempt to build up an exclusive colonial influence in the region. It also tried to separate Tibet from China and ultimately turn it into a buffer zone against British-controlled northern India.
All right, hold on then, Vito.
Yeah.
For the unknown, what was Tibet's relationship to China pre-People's Republic, right? So what's the brief history of Tibet, China in that area? When did you say the first invasion was? 1888. What was Tibet's relationship to China at that point?
Hold on, let me
Dynasty.
jump in. Okay, so what happened is that with the Kublai, like Tibet officially became united with China around the Kublai Khan time, when the Mongols just invaded and took over. And so then with the Qing dynasty, the Qing dynasty, they signed a formal agreement where the Qing dynasty changed some of the rules about who the Lama is and the type of Buddhism that's going to be practiced.
For Westerners,
so they were a protectorate.
For Westerners, would this be a similar relationship to England and Scotland with the Act of Union, right? Would the Qing and the Tibetan
No, because
Did they have a relationship of? Obviously, the Qing was above the Tibetan, but was
yes, but it was a protectorate.
Exactly.
So
right.
against foreign invaders, the Qing would defend Tibet, but then the local administration would be done by the Lamassuris.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Do carry on, Vito.
Right. So, these two wars shall never be forgotten, says Hu Yan, a professor from the Party School of the Central Committees of the Communist Party of China. You may tell those Tibet separatists that Chinese people will never forget history, and it was imperialist nations that had invaded Tibet and have been trying to separate Tibet from China, he said. So the first invasion, it was like after the Opium War, where the Britain planned to build a road as a trade channel between China's southwestern Yunnan province and Myanmar, in a move to scramble for more economic benefits in the region. During the pre-construction research session in 1875, a translator named Augustus Raymond Margery from the British consulate in Shanghai was killed as a result of a local protest. Britain grabbed the opportunity and managed to force the Chinese Qing government to sign the Chifu Convention, which allowed the British to visit and explore Tibet. Having realized the greedy nature of the British invaders, the local dependent government built some fortification of a Lingtu mountain along with the border between Tibet and Sikkim in 1886. Britain, outraged and which allegedly claimed the 45 area within the British-controlled Sikkim territory, warned the Qing government of the military action unless the defensive measures were dismantled in time. Having tried invading with warnings in 1888, the Britain launched military attacks against Tibet. The Tibetan troops were defeated largely due to their outdated weapons and shortage of supplies. After the war, the Qing government signed two more unfair treaties with Britain in 1890 and 1893. As a result, the Qing government acknowledged that the Sikkim remained under British control and accepted British proposal of border divisions between Tibet and Sikkim. The Qing government also agreed to open the southern Tibetan city of Yadong as a business hub where Britain was granted extraterritoriality and exempted from trade duties on both imports and exports in 5 years. The unfair treaties not only violated China's sovereignty, but also infringed the interests of the local Tibetan government. In spite of the treaty signed, Tibetans continued to herd in their home pasture land. They even managed to destroy the border stones erected by Britain in an open protest against the border division and the unfair treaties. So this second invasion, which is the massacre of Tibetan soldiers and civilians, at a time when Britain used India as its staging ground to press ahead its invasion plan of Tibet, the Qinghai Tibet Plateau, which is like one of the monastery in Tibet,
right,
also became the target of aggression by the Tsarist Russia. That Tsarist Russia. Britain considered the Himalayas. Britain considered the Himalayas as the barrier of the Indian subcontinent, and Tibet, located just on the other side of the mountain, should belong to Britain's sphere of influence. If Tibet were to fall into the hands of Russia, Britain, India would be completely exposed to the threat of Russia. Governor General and Viceroy of British India, George Curzon, believed that Britain should pursue the forward policy to preempt Russia in the scramble for control of Tibet.
Right. Okay. This is 8-nation alliance times, right?
Yeah, this is during the time when the 8-nation alliance all controlled parts of China. So Russia's got a piece of land, Germany got a piece of land, Italy got a piece of land, and whatever.
Yeah. Go on, Tom.
There's a map which is kind of like the what the 8-nation alliance decided would be the relevant spheres of interest of each of the 8 nations within China, and like Britain and France got like the largest 2 sections of this carve up that they decided. Britain gave itself all of Tibet, as Vito was just saying, Hong Kong, most of like Fujian province, like the south kind of thing. The French got the next largest concessions, I believe, followed by the Russians after that. Well, Shanghai was kind of an international city that was divided equally between all the imperialist powers, which is why there's all the different concessions in Shanghai. But with Russia, they got all of Manchuria, which is why the Russian-Japanese war happened.
What's it called? Forgot the city name. Go on, carry on.
Vladivostok.
That's it.
Vladivostok. Yeah. It was kind of before that. After Vladivostok was taken by the Russians, I suppose it was the entirety of Manchuria fell under the quote unquote Russian sphere of influence. And as Vito was saying, the great game between Russia and Britain over Tibet was also what you were seeing at the same time over Afghanistan. That was why Afghanistan initially gained the name the Graveyard of Empires, because Britain went into Afghanistan, and that was kind of when the empire started to crumble because they just had so many military defeats. Now, I'm not going into Afghanistan, but you saw this kind of geopolitical fight for interest over so many different kind of areas in Asia at the time that caused so much destabilization and destruction that which is ridiculous when you consider that it's all just for, like, I don't know, controlling the trade.
Can I hear you, Aisha?
Okay.
Controlling the trade or I don't know, the resources of a particular region. Also, with
hold on, before you carry on, hold that thought. What it also does show is that the Qing/Republic of China, the capitalist, the growing capitalists that were taking over China as well, right, at that time, couldn't defend Tibet, which was a protectorate, right, at the time, from the imperialist, right? But since the People's Republic has taken over administration or protectorate of Tibet, it hasn't been touched by an imperialist finger. This propaganda isn't really touching it; doesn't do anything. And people have seen their rights, that people who before weren't even classed as people have seen their rights, go up 1,000%. They've shot to the standard of living, a better standard of living arguably now than Westerners have, right?
I mean, it's also worth pointing out that it wasn't so much that the Qing was unable to protect Tibet so much, it was more so that there was so much shit going on within the Qing dynasty that like their army was so divided. I mean,
that is a case of that, right?
And also, it was like like the mismanagement from the Empress herself.
Exactly.
The Dowager.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. Feudalism doesn't have the capability to defend the whole of China from imperialism, right? But socialism so far hasn't it?
Because there was the Boxer Rebellion at the same time, which was like one of the biggest rebellion. Was it the Boxers? What was the one before the Boxers, Vito? The Heavenly Uprising.
I forgot what that is, but
I've forgotten the name for it, but it was one of the largest uprisings like in history ever. It was like a 300-400 million man
Tian's
uprising.
in the chat, so he'll just say it. It'll be in the chat in a second when Tian types it in. Anyway, carry on.
And this was basically detracting from the vast majority of the Qing forces. As a result, all the Western powers basically had a completely distracted Qing, which made it so much easier for them to carve off all their respective parts. And I mean, this is kind of a feature throughout Chinese history that whenever there's internal strife, all of the border regions tend to kind of break off and go and do their own thing. Now, like you saw this multiple times throughout history with what we know today as Xinjiang, which was back in the day known as the Western Territories. These would literally kind of exert some sort of de facto influence, independence, not influence, whenever there was like a large schism within China. So like during the Warring States period, when the central government collapsed, you had the Western Territories, or Xinjiang, became kind of its own thing. It gained khanates from different kind of ethnic groups, different kingdoms. Same with Tibet, like they would always kind of, stop paying the local taxes and stuff like that to the government whenever situations like this happened. So this was a kind of feature of Chinese history anyway, like a de facto one. But when you add the West into the mix, they love it because they love being able to further division and shit like that just by saying, oh well, if that serves our geopolitical interests in the region, then we'll just fund, I don't know, this particular Panchen Lama that wants to be closer to India, for example, and this is just how it goes.
They used to have actually there was a case not too far from like 1920s or something where one of the Panchen Lamas had a drive-by shootout and had his the old Dalai Lama had a drive-by shootout where he shot out the Panchen Lama sometime in the 1920s. So this was a regular occurrence.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Nazis said themselves that they were rough around the edges, right?
Yeah.
If a Nazi's saying you're rough around the edges, come on. What must it like? People in chat are saying, Tom, it's the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom.
Taiping, that's it. Yeah, sorry, it's literally
rebellion.
It's literally 6 a.m. here, so
that's all right.
my ability to immediately grab
the
historical
civil
facts
war
from the areas
in history.
Yeah.
Do carry on.
Yeah. So going back to kind of more modern day, or not so much modern day, but like following the fall of the Qing, you saw kind of the exact same thing. When the Qing fell and the Republic of China was proclaimed by Sun Yat-sen or Sun Zhongshan, you kind of saw the exact same situation. Britain was trying to meddle in Tibet again. Tibet was trying to claim its de facto autonomy. Russia, which at that time was actually the Soviet Union, was meddling in Xinjiang because they didn't have any kind of... This was Stalin's Soviet Union. Oh, no, sorry, Lenin's Soviet Union. But it wasn't kind of allied to the Republic of China in any way because there was no ideological... Yeah. I mean, there was kind of, there was some fraternal ties with them both being born from the revolution which overthrew a monarchy, but pretty much after the the White Terror, which led to the massacre of communists in Shanghai, Russia used it as a way to call the Republic of China a reactionary revolutionary force rather than a progressive revolutionary force, which led to them basically creating the first two East Turkestan republics in Xinjiang, which is always funny.
I actually covered this in my interview with Carl Za. It's very interesting because they were worried about Japanese invasions, and they did set up to the east, like two one of them was what we now know as Turkestan, like right in the pre-Stalin era. They were just like, it's better to have our warlord than somebody who's going to cozy up with the Japanese.
Yeah, and so Tibet's always... Tibet and Xinjiang have been different and the same because kind of they're both huge provinces. Like both of them make up like maybe over 50% of China when you combine them together. they are also both incredibly sparsely populated. Like they're some of the most sparsely populated places on Earth. Like maybe one person per I don't know 10 square kilometers or something like that. It's extremely both are extremely sparsely populated.
The population of Xinjiang is like what, 10 million people, is it? Something like
about
that?
19 million. 19
it?
million. The population
Tibet,
of the Uyghurs is
I mean,
12
Tibet's
million.
only about what, 4 million or something. It's not much, is it? It's huge.
Yeah, Tibet's a lot less because with Tibet it's extremely difficult to live there unless you kind of really acclimatized to the region in terms of being able to breathe the thin air on the plateau. Like you could just get sick. Like it's really difficult for anyone. Like even people from mainland, like the internal mainland China. So like the what's it called, the seaside provinces and stuff like that, they even struggle to go to Tibet without feeling sick because of the thin air and stuff like this. So
Anna Louise Strong, when she wrote about Tibet, she dedicates one chapter to how she started wheezing when she started walking there. And this actually gives another dimension to the serfdom. Like they had to do it where there's less air too. So on top of this.
oh yeah, it's but the differences and similarities of Xinjiang kind of end at the population and the size. And the next reason that they're both so strategically important is because one, they are basically the gates of China. Both of them prevent invasions from West Asia, from Russia, from kind of everywhere to the west of China. To the west of China. So there's that reason, which is the strategic geographical security reason. Then with regards to Xinjiang, it's heavily rich in resources, a lot of resources, millions and millions of tons of oil, natural gas, coal. It's incredibly resource rich. And with regards to Tibet, it's, as I was saying earlier, it's the convergence of the 4 Asian rivers. So whilst China controls Tibet, India is always in a constant panic that China can just shut off their water supply. They can just dam the Brahmaputra.
Like Turkey does to Syria.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Same thing.
Tian in the chat earlier said there's lots of copper deposits in Tibet, as well as rare earth materials, and most importantly, fresh water.
Yeah, that's the point. Like it's whilst China does have alternate deposits of their rare earths, which they can withdraw from areas that are easier to mine in because the air is not as thin. The most important thing is the watercourse. Now, if India controlled Tibet or like had a zone of influence over an independent Tibet, for example, you would probably see them damming up like the Chinese rivers as a way to kind of pressure China into doing what it wants. Now you notice that China doesn't do the same thing to India. Even when they're having conflicts, they never dam up the Indian rivers. Now it's not just about the water aspect, like the fresh drinking water, but obviously these rivers, what's the word? They feed the farmland of both China and India. They feed the farmlands of Vietnam, most of the Indochina peninsula. All of these rivers come from Tibet, because Tibet is such a high plain. So if China is to lose Tibet, and an outside power like the British or the Indians today, or a hostile outside power were to gain the control over it, if they were to dam one of these rivers, the Yellow River or the which is the other one that comes from Tibet? No, in China. There's the Yellow River, there's the
but the Brahmaputra River is the one that
sorry.
feeds about 4 other rivers.
Yeah. If they were to dam either the Yangtze or the Yellow River, China would starve again, but on a kind of scale that you've never seen before, because that is how China gets all of its water for all of its rice production, all of its vegetable production, realistically. So it's a huge security concern, and as Fran rightly pointed out before, it's very similar to what happens with Syria and Turkey. It's does what happens with Egypt and Ethiopia. Not many people know about this, but at the moment those two countries are kind of on the brink of war with each other because Ethiopia dammed the Nile as a way to kind of increase their own market share.
But not exactly, because Ethiopia is not completely electrified, and so they built a hydroelectric dam in order to make more power to electrify itself. But yes, there is a big conflict between Sudan, Ethiopia, and Egypt because of what they did in the Nile.
Yeah, it I mean, it makes sense why Ethiopia did it, but in the same vein, it's an existential threat to Egypt because it's kind of where all of Egypt's food production floodplains come from, is from the Nile and adjacent to the Nile. So when that river becomes blocked, there's a huge problem there, and that would be the exact same thing with China. Now, Chinese people know this, the PLA knows this, the CPC knows this, the ROC knew this, which is why when you see all these claims, about overthrowing the CCP and all this, you always see them kind of creating this map where it's like the mainland of China is like the Republic of China again, like under Taiwan, and you see like an independent Tibet and an independent Xinjiang and all this kind of bullshit. That would never be allowed to happen. No matter what Chinese government was in control of China, whether it's a monarchist government like the Qing, whether it's a capitalist reactionary government like the ROC, or whether it's the communists like now, everyone in China understands the fundamental truth that the control of Tibet and the control of Xinjiang are vital to the state itself's very existence.
Yes, it's similar to the concept of Russia, right? I always see it like Russia is almost like a different world to the Western world, isn't it? It has the concept of the state is completely different. Russia is like the world with the states inside it, right? And China's similar to that. So I get
very different. Exactly.
Yeah, what you were saying is correct there, Fran. It's pretty much exactly the same as Russia, which is why when the USSR collapsed, America did its very best to slice Russia, or what we knew as Russia at the time, into multiple warring states.
Well, they did, didn't they? They sliced places like the Ukraine off and...
Well, no. They tried to create a war in Chechnya, and then they tried to fund Dagestani separatists, but thankfully none of that worked, and Putin came in and negotiated.
Well, some places did though, didn't they? Ukraine and Belarus got sovereignty in 91.
Ukraine and Belarus is a little different than Chechnya or Dagestan, in that no, they're not actually. Never mind.
They're not. Oh,
no, exactly. They are to some extent.
Same with Crimea rejoining Russia. When people say Crimea's not been taken over by Russia, it's just gone back to its historic place, right? Part of the Russian state, the world of Russia, not the world of the West. Go on, Tom.
I think what Ash was just getting at there, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Esha, but basically, the USSR granted sovereignty to Ukraine when Ukraine was.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
No, hold on.
It gave it autonomy. It didn't give it sovereignty though. So that came in 1991 when the USSR collapsed, right?
It's neither here nor there, but yes, that is exactly what sovereignty may be the wrong word. But it's neither here nor there. Dagestan and Tatarstan and Chechnya were part of the Russian Federal Republic.
Yeah.
Well, no. The Soviet Union was made up of 16 federal republics, and Dagestan was never, or Chechnya was never a federal republic.
Right, okay, it was just still part of Russia, right? Whereas Ukraine was given autonomy and became a socialist republic there, but it didn't get sovereignty. It's like what I'm describing is how you've been describing Tibet and Xinjiang's relationship to China, historic, right? China, the state, it's the same relationship.
No, you're right to say it's not sovereignty, but what I'm getting at is, and what Esh is saying, is that whilst the other 15 republics were granted their own republic, and essentially their own kind of almost pseudo-independent status of domestic foreign policy and stuff like this. There were certain regions which were core to Russia's actual security, like Chechnya, which is a similar situation to Tibet, insofar as with Chechnya it was like the mountain pass border, allowing countries to enter Russia, basically neighboring countries. So it's of absolute fundamental security that Chechnya remains with Russia, which is why the USA tried to foment uprisings and Chechnyan kind of revolutions after the fall of the USSR. And it's why Putin was basically placed into power by the kind of oligarchical class, because even the
national
oligarchs,
bourgeoisie.
Because even the oligarchs who are happy to like sell off, the USSR, sell off all of the Soviet republics into independence, which was granted to them by Gorbachev and the other bastard, what's his name, Yeltsin. With things like the Caucasus regions, these are literally vital to the existence of the Russian state. Like, without the Caucasus, the Russian state can't really exist. And this goes for the same with with Tibet and Xinjiang to a lesser extent. I mean, with Xinjiang, and I'm going back to Xinjiang, but it's a similar situation. This was conquered by the Chinese dynasties back in the 60 BCE, so 60 years before Christ was born, literally.
Right. So Tibet has been part of China for that long.
May I ask a question? Do you think that Brezhnev had a part of like the falling of the Soviet Union?
No, he did not,
policy?
because what he did was he actually went back to a little bit of an older foreign policy, and he also kept the DDR alive. What really killed it is Yuri Andropov dying in 1983. But yeah, I would not blame anyone until like Gorbachev, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not even Khrushchev.
Okay, Khrushchev. Hold on. Khrushchev weakened the other states that the Soviet Union liberated, mostly like Hungary and Poland, but he did not. Domestically, he wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I mean, like, it took me a few times to like get a sense of what Khrushchev has been mounting throughout, like the continuation, like the Stalination was pretty bad, but sorry.
What Khrushchev? Okay, if JFK had not been killed, Khrushchev would have been probably known as the greatest leader of all time, because
that's it. But the kind of like the reactionary forces from the American military
killed him.
Because they don't want the sort of like the blossoming of the friendship between Kennedy and Khrushchev to sort of like that can weaken their position. So they're doing a lot to overthrow to make that not happen and kill, like, and that sort of like.
But that's a digression.
Yeah.
Bonus question.
What?
No, that was the bonus question from Vito.
Yes, that was the bonus question. Anyways, I'm a little tired, so I'm going to be heading out.
No
worries. It is time to wrap up the show anyway.
Okay, well, please follow me on TikTok, on all of the thingies, and join us tomorrow at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, 3 a.m. Britain time for Late Nights with Lennon.
Nice. I like how you said all the thingies. Hold on, before you go, I've got one question I've got to ask from the chat. The question is from We Need Critical Thinking. Says, if we were going to a Halloween costume party, what would we be? So all of you've got to answer that question. Esha, you go first, because then you can shoot off if you wanted to get off.
If I was going to a Halloween costume party, I would be A surf.
A surf.
That's dark. That's dark.
I don't know. I just thought of like the first thing that popped into my mind.
That fits very nicely into what Halloween is like.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna get cancelled for that, Ash.
What would you go as, Vito?
Me, I would. I never had a really huge thought about what I would wear because, like, I don't have much, thought about. But if I were to wear, dress up, somebody, it would be, I don't know. It would be just me.
Just you.
Wearing. No,
He's
just
stolen.
me wearing. Hang on. Just me wearing like unscrupulousness, like the like not being suspicious of like the.
Just say Tony Blair.
Yeah, I would dress as Tony Blair.
There you go.
With a white face, and then just just going around and say, hey kids, do you want text? Do you want some bombs? I can give you bombs.
As Tony Blair did, lived and breathed. Right, Tom, what would you go as?
Yeah.
Zombie Pooey.
Zombie Pooey.
Yeah.
What, reformed Pooey.
No. Like full Imperial Pooey, but with like undead.
All right. I would go as what's he called, that American Warhawk guy, not George Soros, the other one.
Oh come on, you need to be more specific than that.
I forgot his name. I'd go as one of these old Imperial American, and I'd look like Johnny Knoxville in Bad Grandpa with like this fat bodysuit on. Yeah. I'd go something like that, I think. Jenny says she likes to keep her costumes realistic, so she goes as a pimp. Tom Cotton. Oh yeah, you could go as Tom Cotton and have like a load of gold behind you. I was once out in Brighton in the UK and I saw a student dressed as 9/11. So there you go.
That's amazing.
You know what Tom should cosplay as? He should cosplay as Net Price. Like,
who?
Seriously. Net Price, the guy in the Biden's administration who just speaks a lot in the press conference or something.
I could see Tom going more as like a hobbit from the Lord of the Rings or something like that.
That's true.
That's abusive.
Right.
One just swings around. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, that's the end of the show. We'll be back next Friday with the regular podcast. As always, thanks for that question. Anyway, we need critical thinking. Right, let me plug the stuff. I liked how Esha did it. She just went follow us on the thingies, right? Okay, so follow us on all the thingies. We've got merch, we've got Patreon, we've got join now on YouTube if you want. We've got Twitter. We've also got a website. We got a new article out today. I'll just jump that up on the screen so you can see it quick and you know where to go. The website needs a bit of a fix. That's not good. Pirates of the Caribbean. That's always a good costume to go as. Pirates of the Caribbean. See Tom dressed as a mini Jack Sparrow.
I'm not even commenting.
Tom, before we go, Sammy's gone out in Liverpool on Halloween.
He's gone out?
Yeah, he's out clubbing. You've gone, and all of a sudden he's out like being a party monster.
I don't even know what to say. I'm telling his imam.
Exactly. He was like, I'm not coming on the show. I'm going out. Right. Anyway, here's an article about climate change. If you're into reading articles about climate change, there's a twist at the end as well. Yeah. You guys in the Discord, are you gonna like hang around for a bit, for 10 minutes and talk to the Patreons? If you're a Patreon, you can get in a fan voice room now and talk to me, Tom Vito, for 10 minutes. It's very late and early for us, so we'll be going. But anyway, we'll see you later.
Bye.
一会儿见。